Teachers, what's the most disturbing thing you've confiscated off a student? One of my favorite stories. So a girl was getting searched for drugs. I was the witness. My male VP was going through her purse taking things out. She had a dildo. Except at first he didn't realize. He's holding it, opening the back of it, and looking into the battery compartment, when suddenly he realizes what he is holding. Wish I had a camera. A student came running to me during a break once, and wanted to drag me to a class to show me something. I went along, and once there, he directed me to a student's desk. There was an open notebook lying on the desk, detailing my full name, birth date, address, license plate, and other insane stuff. We immediately took her to the office after she returned. Police was called, they confiscated her phone. She had her entire album titled Teachers or Professors Don't Remember, and quite literally every single teacher she had was in there. I was in 4 pictures, some of which she took secretly in class. The others were old ass pics from my old Facebook. Was a bit creeped out, to be honest. We found $15k in cash in the book bag of a 2nd grader when I was a teacher. Turns out he was a runner for the neighborhood gangs. He was 7. When I was in high school, one of the percussionists in the lowest level band class was suspended for a couple days after a dead squirrel was confiscated from his book bag. He evidently was planning on putting it in the band teacher's desk. My band teacher thought it was funny, but was otherwise generally unfazed by the news. One of my students turned in an assignment on a flash drive with a bunch of BDSM porn on it. No, it wasn't intentional. A cannonball. It was in their locker. I guess it's not really disturbing, but it is up. I once took a note 2 girls were passing back and forth. They were talking about telling the principal I raped them because they didn't like being in study hall, as I didn't allow them to talk in study hall. My mom was a teacher, and she had to take a lighter away from a student after he lit his test on fire. I remember there was a report of a student having a gun in his backpack, and he reached for it, but the teacher broke the kid's hand with one of the textbooks before he could get to it. She insisted she'd found it by the ravine and just thought it was cool, so kept it until she'd decided what to do with it. But that means she'd either found a lone finger, or she was leaving out a part of this story. Human finger. She insisted she'd found it by the ravine and just thought it was cool, so kept it until she'd decided what to do with it. But that means she'd either found a lone finger, or she was leaving out a part of this story. My 2 female classmates had a nice idea to bring matches and rubbing alcohol to school in 8th grade. They had a plan to lure a bully girl to a secluded area outside the school, pour bottles of rubbing alcohol on her from a tree, and light her on fire. The only reason they got caught is because instead of leaving their backpacks in their classroom for an assembly, they brought them to the assembly room, and some kid tried going through them to steal from them. They didn't admit when caught, but like 2 to 3 years later. Edit, because of the replies. This was 2002, barely after Columbine. They only got a 4-day suspension. In 08 I heard one was a meth addict, the other unknown. The girl who was gonna be lit was still a bully to everyone after. I'm not a teacher, but I was in a class once, and a teacher went to take a phone away from a student when he heard it vibrating. When he walked over to her, he said, "Hand it over." She was so embarrassed because she wasn't using her phone. Her vibrator just started going off. A few kids laughed, but the teacher was the most embarrassed alongside the girl. 2 huge hunting knives from a 1st grader. Blades were 6 inches long and one was locked open. He had taken them from his dad's hunting gear and was showing them off in the boys' bathroom. His mom had passed when he was 4 and his dad was doing the best he could to raise and provide for 3 kids. Adjudicated youth. First day, dropped a bag of pot out of his pants. This was 20 years ago. It was his last chance after a string of several incidents, none of which included drugs. I never turned him in. He graduated the program. He's married with children and has a great job. I was with a VP as we searched a girl's bag, and we found a burner phone, $3,000 cash, and her black book of clients. She was 18, so not much we could do, but man, it made shit real when you consider she had a book with about 20 men's names in it and what they liked. Second weirdest was the kid who brought 3 fish he had caught that morning. He just wanted to kill them. Like didn't catch them for food, but just to kill them. Student had brought a puzzle to school, but the pieces didn't match. Turned out it was a single piece from all the puzzles we kept at school, making every single one of them unsolvable. Obligatory, not a teacher, but I was in art class when my teacher told a student to throw a note she was passing around away. The note was a super graphic love letter sent by this girl's boyfriend, detailing how he'd fuck her asshole and a bunch of bondage type shit. The weirdest part was this girl didn't have any friends in that class. She just stood up and passed it around to the popular kids, like she was proud of it. This girl was pretty out there, so our teacher didn't even have a reaction to it at that point. A cat. One of my students brought his cat to school zipped up in his sports bag. Poor little thing. I worked as a percussion instructor, think an assistant marching band director, but just for the drummers, for several years. There was one student who was a kind of tertiary friend. He had a circle of friends, but he was on the outer edge of that circle, a bit of a loner, quiet and sensitive, really nice, a bit of a clown, intelligent and insightful, but without direction or drive. At the end of the marching season, it came time to turn in all the music binders. I was going through and making sure all the music that had been handed out had been turned back in, and I found a handwritten suicide note that had gotten left in the binder. That was about 6 years ago and he's fine, but it was the single biggest adversity I ever had to overcome in my time in the field of education. Not my story, but my psychology teacher used to work with underprivileged kids. One student, maybe 6 to 8 years old, really enjoyed his class and gave him a jar as a gift. What's in the jar? Jelly? Jam? No. The teacher noticed cuts all over the boy's arms and slowly puts the jar down. It was full of old/new blood. Completely filled. He figures that the kid saw it as a part of him and probably saw it as something very symbolic and meaningful. He says he was told when he started to never look up the kids he worked with because very few times is it a happy ending. The teacher's a great person. I imagine he just got a counselor and had an ambulance check the kid out and dispose of the jar. The kid's mother was also a drug addict. A hand-drawn tentacle porn hentai comic. Kindergarten teacher found a needle in a boy's lunchbox. Turns out it was a used heroin needle that parents packed by accident. The boy now lives with his grandparents. The mother came in after losing custody and screamed at me for ruining her life and stealing her child. I calmly called school security and she was escorted off campus. Very bright boy is now in 2nd grade and his grandparents are an absolute delight. He is now in very loving hands. Edit. Small grammatical errors. Even teachers make grammar mistakes, you twats. Lol. Not a teacher. A class picture fell out of a girl's desk who was in our class. This was when I was in grade 8, so 2003. It said on the back of the picture, people I want to kill. All the popular people were circled on it, and for some reason I was too. I was shocked she thought I was popular. Felt pretty cool for the first time to be included with those kids. All in all, a good day. Oh, we turned it into the teacher. They didn't do anything about it. Not a teacher, but when I was in 5th grade, our teacher tripped over a kid's backpack. She was like, "What do you have in there? Bricks?" And he really did have bricks in there. My crazy mom thought it would be cool to give me a coconut and a knife for lunch one day. I got in trouble for having a knife. 2nd grade. I was just hungry. She thought it would be a cool thing to bring to school. You don't wanna know how often I explained to middle schoolers that having nudes of each other on their phones and passing them around constituted child pornography and that they could be charged. I remember when I was in middle school, a fellow 8th grader's dad was a tattoo artist. Somehow this kid had managed to bring his dad's tattoo equipment to school and it was confiscated when he tried to tattoo another kid whilst his friends held this kid down. Pretty sure it was going to be a forced tattoo, but a teacher was walking by and heard the screams and stopped it. There was a horrid smell coming from an area known as the dungeon, just rows of lockers, so the principal and 2 teachers, lucky me, had to do a locker inspection. All the students had to open their lockers so we could check them. We get to one locker and the kid is sweating bullets. He asks us not to inspect his, but of course we do. He opens his locker, looks normal, and after the other teacher rummages through it a bit, he pulls out a bag, looks inside and starts gagging. The student, 16 years old, had a shopping bag full of used condoms. He told us that he kept them as proof to show people that he had an active sex life. Edit. Lots of questions being asked lol, so I will just answer them here. I don't know if he actually had sex all those times, or if he was just jerking off into a condom. He never had a GF, and was pretty nerdy. For all those asking what smelled, cum. Cum smells fucking horrendous when left in a bag for IDK how long. It was vile, and instantly made you want to throw up. I still gag just thinking about it. This happened a few years ago, when I was teaching in Canada. I won't get more specific than that.